Hello, my name is John Hicks. I'm a lecturer in the Master's Degree in Nonprofit Management program at Columbia University School for Professional Services. And I'm honored to be your host for the second installment of our three-part series, Cryptocurrencies and Nonprofit, New Frontiers and New Challenges. This three-part series is taking a somewhat in-depth look at an emerging new way of giving. It's quite exciting and quite daunting. In our first segment, hosted by my colleague and friend Ramon Sigri last week, we looked at opportunities and challenges for fundraising. This week, we're going to be looking at organizational considerations, and then our third segment, we're going to be looking at the road ahead. Today's program, Organizational Considerations, will explore the ethical, legal, and regulatory considerations associated with cryptocurrency gifts, as well as the operational, financial, and risk management planning needed to manage and accept these contributions. So before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to invite you to submit your questions as we go via the chat function, or the Q&A function, I should say, at the bottom of the screen. So you'll notice there's a chat function and a Q&A. Please submit your questions through Q&A because that's where we're going to be monitoring them. And then the last, say, 20 minutes or so of our program, we're going to invite our panelists to address your questions. And speaking of which, we have with us today two experts to share their insights and best practices. I'll ask each to further introduce herself, say a little more about her experience. At this time, I would like to welcome Karen Gano, lecturer in the Master's Degree in Nonprofit Management program at Columbia University School for Professional Services and principal of Gano Nonprofit Services. And our first speaker, Diane Clifford, Managing Director, Constituent Development and Operations, Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry. Diane, over to you.
I am Diane Clifford, Managing Director of Constituent Development at Share Our Strength, and I raise funds for the No Kid Hungry campaign. And I've been with the organization for about 6.5 years, and we adopted cryptocurrency about 2.5 years. So today I'm going to share my screen and take you through the process of the thought process that we went through while we were making the evaluation of cryptocurrency. So again, I'm bringing my perspective as a fundraiser, and my goal as a fundraiser is to help donors meet their needs, to solve problems, or to meet their aspirational goals, and to be ready to assist a donor when they're ready to engage in any way that they would like to help fulfill our mission. So back in October 2019, we had a donor ask about accepting cryptocurrency for their charitable donation at end of year, and we had not really thought about that possibility. And I'll walk you through the process, and within a month, we were set up to participate in the first Bitcoin Giving Tuesday in 2019. So again, coming at it from the development fundraiser perspective and individual giving, and I'll cover personal contributions and also touch on NFT beneficiary gifts. So the first question that folks usually ask is, why cryptocurrency? Why did we get into the acceptance piece of gift processing? And the answer is that donors want to be able to give through cryptocurrency. Like stocks, the IRS classifies cryptocurrency as property, so they can make charitable contributions and avoid capital gains tax on the fair market value of the charitable deduction. And as of 2021, last year, there were 27 million crypto users, and that number is probably much larger, 30 million worldwide. Just through one charitable giving platform last year, $70 million in charitable giving was generated. And I checked today, and even though the market is it looks very different than it did during end of year this past year, the combined market cap of cryptocurrency is $373 billion. So still a lot of value that donors can contribute. So again, donors are holding cryptocurrency. It has value when it's converted to US dollars. So I definitely recommend that you look into accepting cryptocurrency as a charitable gift. So some of the considerations that we thought about as we were making our decision was the first is whether you'll sell the cryptocurrency as it's given to you, or you'll hold the cryptocurrency. And I would say just all of the thinking that you have about cryptocurrency being confusing and very difficult to understand, just think of it as being similar to a stock gift. That when the donor makes the contribution, and as you likely do with stock giving, you'll have your broker sell the stock so that you are honoring the donor's intent to leverage that value at the moment the donor gives the stock to fulfill your mission. And think of it in a similar way with cryptocurrency. So the key step in selling the cryptocurrency is to adopt a donation platform that helps you with that conversion and managing the donor journey. And I'll walk through that in just a little bit. So with the conversion platform, again, the cryptocurrency is sold upon receipt. So your finance team is only managing the cash within your own bank account. And I would say that there are many platforms out there today that can help you with cryptocurrency donations, and to be very mindful of that giving process, that the donor is their conversion is made into your bank account as opposed to a third-party foundation. So similar to when you're receiving gifts through the PayPal Giving Fund or some other donation platforms, you want to have the donor give directly to you so that you are managing the tax receipt is coming from your organization and not a third-party nonprofit. So adopting the sell policy, again, if you think of it as being similar to stock donations, it's a light lift for including that in your giving options. And the other option is hold, which we chose not to go down that path, and it increases the complications for the charity. I'm on the NGO side of the business here, and the examples that I've heard are donors making large gifts of cryptocurrency. They're cryptocurrency evangelists. They believe in the future of cryptocurrency, and their requirement is that if the donor accepts the gift, that they will hold it for an extended period of time. So if you have that example, that sort of opens up a whole new world of gift acceptance policies and how that relates to your investment policy and donor agreements. So it does happen, but it's not as common. So I mentioned gift acceptance policies. So if you don't have one, you should develop one. It helps outline the guidelines of the types of gifts that you'll accept, what you might need to have more of a conversation with your board, and or what you may not accept regardless. So if you don't have one, just Google. There's many examples out there that you can use as a draft. And again, as you're updating your gift acceptance policies, you'll likely just duplicate the paragraph that you have for your stock gift policies. And I've included an example here. You can even go as detailed that you to the level of where you will accept the gift and through what platform. So this example is saying that the crypto asset donations are only accepted through the donation platform that is sitting on this webpage on your website. And those donations are processed and sold upon receipt, and the gifts are final. And I would also suggest that while you're looking at your gift acceptance policies, you might take a look at the section on tangible personal property. I've had conversations with colleagues where donors have asked if they would accept NFTs, so the actual physical NFT is a donation. And you've probably heard of the tweet, the NFT that was sold for millions of dollars, and then the auction, resulted in thousands of dollars offers. So you really can't value the NFTs. So we specifically state that we don't accept those. So the platform is really important in helping you with the cryptocurrency giving. And my graphic here is showing the process from the donor through to the charity. And on the left, you have the donor who is holding, I believe now our platform accepts hundreds of different types of cryptocurrency. And the donor has an interest in helping you fulfill your mission. And we direct the donor to a web page on our website that houses this widget that the graphic in the middle shows. It's essentially a donate form for cryptocurrency. We include this website disclaimer on the left that sort of clarifies that in addition to not being financial advisors, how the IRS classifies cryptocurrency. It's property. The donor makes the donation. The platform acknowledges the donor so that they have all of the information they need to make the to record that as a charitable deduction if they wish. And then the platform also converts the cryptocurrency into US dollars into our business account, which results in unrestricted revenue for mission fulfillment. And here I'm going sort of one deeper, a different view on the crypto giving platform. And we are using the giving block. And again, the donor sends the donation from their wallet into our crypto donation platform. We can choose whether we want to buy, or, I'm sorry, to hold or sell. That is an option. Again, we choose to sell immediately. We have a dashboard where we're receiving immediate notification of gifts as they're happening. Donor receives their tax receipt, and then we have access to our donations essentially immediately. So once you have your platform in place, there are other considerations around marketing and how you'll manage that internally with your staff. So again, market, as a start, as your first step, just market cryptocurrency giving as you do with stocks, which is, maybe mentions during end of year or mentions on donation form websites, but we have not launched a specific cryptocurrency campaign. It's difficult to specifically target crypto donors, so we're more sort of passively having that option available as donors ask for it. We've also trained up our major gift officers to know where that link is, and if a donor brings up cryptocurrency, they know how to help the donor fulfill that gift. And I'll speak a little bit about NFTs, but if you have that option brought to you, you'll need someone that has knowledge of cause marketing, maybe somebody on your corporate team that has an understanding of CCV agreements that those come into play with NFT beneficiary activities. And then internally, it's again, not unlike other gift channels that needing a donor stewardship contact that is assigned to monitor these gifts as they come in and triage to the appropriate stewardship team and ensure that while the platform acknowledges the gifts, we always personally send an email. Generally, you're receiving an email contact as info as contact. We do thank them again for their gift, but we don't mention the value. And then identifying folks on your gift admin team and your finance team who collaborate in reconciling the gifts across the platform into your database and your financial statements. So I did just want to touch a little bit on NFTs, which were a big piece of the fundraising for our organization over the last 18 months, and it certainly has cooled off in the last few months since maybe December, but it's similar to any other percent of proceed donation you might have. Book royalties might be similar, that it's a commercial co-venture cause-related marketing program. And as I noted earlier, it's not the same as accepting a physical NFT as a gift. And I'm sharing some examples here that our first NFT, we were beneficiary of an art auction sale, and very light brand recognition, promoted to a very small audience, but benefiting from 50% of the sales. And then our largest was we had partnered upfront with the auction of the Degenerate Ape Academy, which was, I believe, the largest Solana NFT auction at the time. that had a very formal agreement up front, specific about how the matching gift language would be presented by the partner, how our logo would be used. And that was a $110,000 project for us. And then this third one, I think, is what we'll see more of going forward. The NFT was offered by podcasters, and the NFT itself is essentially serving as a membership card. So the NFT is unlocking special benefits that are available to the holder of that NFT. And that was a great success for us as well. So I know I've touched on a very high level on several considerations, so I welcome questions in the conversation.
Thank you very much, Diane. That you give us such a tremendous overview and insight to how you set up a program. And I'm absolutely positive we're going to have some questions that we'll be circling back to you in a moment with. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to Karen, who's going to take a look at the ethical, legal, and regulatory considerations associated with cryptocurrency gifts. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Diane, and welcome to everyone participating here. I am Karen Gano. I do teach in the nonprofit management program, legal landscape and ethics, and I will pull up some slides here and see here. When I am talking in conversations with people about this topic, and maybe you in our audience are very savvy already with this. Diane's given a very good overview of the considerations for a nonprofit in considering cryptocurrency donations. But I find that there's this, it's still very mysterious to a lot of people. They don't understand what it is. And it's digital currency created through and recorded through a distributed ledger technology, a blockchain. And I love Rick Edelman's description of what the blockchain is, which is in the bottom there. It's an analogy to an Excel spreadsheet where your data about yourself is in cell 1, or me. Deed to my house is in cell B2 on the Excel spreadsheet, and data about a buyer for my house is in cell C1. Each cell is a block. Within each block is data. 3 blocks are linked together in a chain of a blockchain. Multiply that thousands and thousands of times regarding transactions, creation and transactions for digital coins, currency, and that's where you get blockchain. Now, IRS has definitions too. It doesn't refer to it as digital currency. It refers to it as virtual currency. Basically says the same thing, but the second definition is more technical. It uses terms of art. Virtual currency is a digital representation of a medium exchange of account, or a unit of account, or a store of value other than a US dollar or other governmental currency. And then the next definition, that it has the equivalent value of real currency, can be substituted for when it's considered property, as Diane talked about. Now, there is relatively little oversight or regulatory oversight that specifically addresses digital assets and their buy, sell, and transfer. It's scarce, but think of it as emerging in the discussion. Some countries have more than we have, but that said, existing laws regarding handling currency, nonprofit investments, charitable solicitations, tax treatment to the extent it's addressed by IRS. Diane talked about the property treatment and capital gains, and anti-money laundering applied generally, even though few laws or regulations are specific to digital currency yet. Another concern that everyone expresses, so many express about accepting gifts or being involved in any way in the digital economy, is the volatility of the market. This by Statistica shows the volatility, if you will, in Bitcoin since its creation in 2013. We saw a rise to 2017, 2018 to about 12,000, dipped again. Bitcoin has had now 6 crashes, if you will, including the last few months since its creation. Other digital currencies follow the same pattern. It's going to happen again, but still, the value is, as Diane pointed out, 33,000 and something now, that which is higher than it's been, except for last year. So, and there is in the field this idea that Bitcoin is going to increase in stability over time as an effective asset because of its limited availability. The Satoshi, the creator, only made it possible for 21 million Bitcoin to ever be created. Only 18 million have been mined to date, 4 million lost. So only 17 million ever will be available, which might be an advantage, and many believes it will. But what about this last aspect? I think it's also important when you're considering best practices and so forth about use and management of digital assets, that you understand a little bit about how they operate. So digital assets are stored in digital wallets. Hot wallets are connected to the internet via an app, and that enables you to instruct the hot wallet to move your money into or out of your wallet and to make charitable contributions, to move it to the giving block for No Kid Hungry, for example. Hot wallets are vulnerable to hackers, however, because they are on the internet. And so to solve that vulnerability problem, you create or obtain a cold wallet, which, is like a flash drive. It's meant to hold your digital coins. So it comes with encryption in the form of private passwords, which are called private keys that are known only to you. Your public key is what you use to make transactions on the blockchain, but your private key is yours only. So you lose your cold wallet, or you forget your private key, and the assets stored in the cold wallet are gone forever. There is no forgot my password function. This is why most charities take the low risk route of using an intermediary, such as Diane explained. It makes a great deal of sense for charities. This method of losing your key or your cold wallet is only one way that digital assets are lost. But as I said, I think understanding that point gives you a better understanding of what you're facing in terms of making determinations of whether you take the giving block, an intermediary route, another such as giving block, or another route. But I also wanted to give a little context about why this matters, why it matters that charities do think about, nonprofits think about why they might need to consider further whether they accept donations and possibly even hold donations of digital assets. As we know from all studies, this is Blackbaud data here. There's a significant change in behavior and demographics of who is giving. An increase in younger donors and donors of color. Statistics here: 53% of Generation Z survey participants increased their giving in 2020. Half of millennials increased giving, and giving for minorities increased: 46% for Blacks, 44% Hispanics, and 38% more overall given there. So we're seeing that the left end, the upper end here, is seeing a huge increase in giving, and we see a corresponding increase in terms of, that it corresponds to who is using cryptocurrency, who's comfortable with cryptocurrency. This from Pew Research Center, 16% of all Americans, but we see the same pattern in the graph to the right there, is that age group that we saw who is increasing their giving is also the age group that's comfortable working in digital assets, and that Asian, Black, and Hispanic adults are more likely than whites to say they've ever invested in, traded, and or used cryptocurrency. And Blackbud for years has been saying that charitable giving is much too white. This also corresponds to the percentage of online transactions that are made on mobile devices. Again, you're seeing that same those younger generations who are increasing their donations, are comfortable with digital assets, have their investments to large extent in digital assets, and all you need is a mobile phone to operate and to work in a digital economy. So that makes a difference. We see that, and in terms of engagement, which is pretty interesting, 6% of donors, which is more than that younger set, say that they prefer virtual or hybrid engagement with those to whom they are making donations or those who are supporting causes that they care about. And Una Osley from the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy at Indiana University is saying the same thing, but she is also pointing out that young Americans are interested in giving directly, that they participate in crowdfunding, that they support causes, and they're more likely to be interested in impact investing, partly because of a shift in the economy, partly because of technology making it easier for them and they're comfortable with technology. And of course, we're reminded that the great wealth transfer, is going to be happening here soon, but don't wait to climb on board is what these commentators are saying, all reference there. And just a quick reference to another point that Diane made. This is an example from the Giving Block that in 2021, the number of charities actually accepting crypto or digital assets increased by 900% just on the Giving Block, which doesn't take into consideration the free will, whom we heard from last week, and Given, and many other platforms that take this in. So it's being recognized. It is a phenomenon. We need to think about it. So there is an incentive. Diane also talked about this for contribution to digital assets. Certainly last year when they soared to their huge high, those who held Bitcoin and other digital assets had huge capital gains to think about. And donating property, which in IRS considers, as we just talked about, digital assets as property, to 501c3 tax-exempt organization is a non-taxable event. And the donor can write off their gains, and their basis is the date in which they acquired it. So Diane talked about the top two ways of accepting virtual assets here. One using the Giving Block, as No Kid Hungry does, which is an intermediary that receives the digital asset, converts it to cash. It does the IRS required acknowledgement, gift acknowledgement to the crypto donor, and then it distributes the cash after conversion to No Kid Hungry or the designated charity. There are 501c3 intermediaries who offer the same services, some such as Free Will, for often the same kind of services Giving Block offers, which includes, if wished for by the charity, assistance with giving strategy and gift fundraising planning. Now, the every.org is a nonprofit that is less expensive. They don't charge a fee. The conversion is done through Coinbase, which charge 1%. So that passes through to the charity. But other than that, they don't charge a fee. They don't offer those additional services, but they do offer that intermediary service that is essentially the helpful same that Diane went through for perhaps less cost. Another intermediary possibility is to go through a donor advised fund, is to have your crypto donor go through a donor advised fund. National Philanthropic Trust and Fidelity Charitable are two of the major operated donor advised funds that have been accepting crypto donations for several years. There are two other options. You can use a crypto exchange where you embed their interactive donation capability in your website. Coinbase and BitPay are two of them. This is less helpful, if you will, to the charity. It requires more administration resources by the charity. These were designed for retail use, basically, for payment systems. Were not intended for nonprofits, so they will not provide the donor information for you. They will not do the gift acknowledgement for you. You'll have to set up means for doing this by yourself, which means you're going to have resources for that. And the last one, you want to be like our speakers last week, particularly Alex Gladstein from the Human Rights Foundation. You want to be incredibly tech savvy. You want to have tech staff. If you want to use your own crypto wallets to receive and manage donations, you get into risk there, and you want to know that you have that kind of tech savvy ability. I'm going to move through these because we talked about these. I put some examples up here just to show you the National Philanthropic Trust, in terms of their heightened due diligence in accepting crypto gifts, offers a nice little roadmap and things to think about when you're thinking about your gift policies, whether you're going to accept crypto gifts, whether you're going to hold them. It gives you some examples of that are in the slides here. I already talked about the typically lower cost if you want to use the BitPay and Bitcoin route for those interactive embedded donation ability, which are more for payment processing. But again, you'll need to provide your own donor support, tax receipt, and collect donor information on yourselves. This one I'll pause a bit on just to emphasize the higher risk here. You're using your own wallets to receive. You'll have to weigh and choose the wallet and custody options. There are third-party custodians. They offer valuable services because they help keep track of your transactions regarding the receipt and use or sale of the digital assets. The organization must create its own donor acknowledgement and collect information, and it has to create policies for accessing the wallet and securely storing credentials. Now, Alex Gladstein from Human Rights Foundation last week said that their organization uses a policy of 3 employees having that private key, and they have very strict policies for how those keys are stored and accessed among those 3 key people. Now, they use a service called btcpayserver.org. Alex promoted that last week in terms of their ability to use it. Now, it is, as it says here, copied from the website, a self-hosted open source cryptocurrency payment processor. Secure, private, censor-free. Bottom line, I looked at it, still requires technical expertise within the organization. You really need to know what you're doing. So follow Diane's route. If you're nervous about this, because I think everybody can do that, that's not something to be nervous about. You're taking a cash donation. This is something you need to think seriously about. So let's just quickly, if you're choosing among these options, research the options, assess required resource commitment in the organization's capacity in terms of expertise, staff time required, and services received for each option, assess risks and your organization's risk tolerance level. Are there heightened privacy considerations? Maybe remember that Human Rights Foundation last week talked about moving Bitcoin to Ukrainian journalism network that is operating now in the diaspora of the European Union somewhere. So moving those assets quickly, peer-to-peer, which this digital assets allow, and privately, so that they're not revealing the identity or location of that recipient. You don't even have to reveal it to Human Rights Foundation is a real concern for that organization. And that kind of heightened privacy is not going to be a concern for most organizations, but it is a consideration when you're thinking about what form of you want to use in accepting digital gifts, and understand the fees and the organization's financial capacity concerning those fees. Large gifts. There are regulatory considerations there potentially. We all know about the Ripple gift in 2018, 29 million in XRP, a digital currency that Ripple developed, to the crowdfunding website donorchoose.org. Now, it's going to benefit, it apparently benefited 1 in 6 public schools across the country, but that was like a windfall gift. It was the largest gift Donor Choose had ever received by quite a few million. So it was received in cash, or otherwise converted immediately to cash out with stock. So it wasn't a concern in that regard. But if you have a large windfall gift like that creates an imbalance in the assets you normally hold, it may affect how you report public support on Schedule A of your 990. Now, generally, it's not going to affect it negatively, but you should consult with your tax preparer and just be aware that is something that could be affected in the way you report on your Schedule A. Restricted assets. Just like any other restricted asset, a donor of digital assets can restrict the assets to a certain purpose. The donorchoose.org gift from Ripple was effectively restricted because it came in response to a crowdfunding request from teachers for help versus general purposes. And so far, by far, most of the gifts coming in to charity from those who are donors of digital assets are for general purposes, which is to everyone's advantage. Diane mentioned the evangelist restrictions to hold the virtual asset for a period of time. Now, ideally, that evangelist is just looking to bring value to the organization it wants to add to that. Alex Gladstein and Patrick Smith last week cautioned us about another reason that someone might want your charity to hold their digital assets. In particular, Patrick said, be careful of coins that you must look up. that there's grifting potentially involved there. They're looking for association with a charity in order to give them the appearance of legitimacy. They're looking for reputation, and you don't know anything about the asset necessarily. This happened with Dogecoin, which I'll talk about a little bit in a moment. But I think this raises the question of gift acceptance policy considerations. Diane mentioned that No Kid Hungry made a choice not to hold assets, but some charities do and are considering that. So you need to plan ahead. Does your nonprofit have the knowledge and resources to hold and manage digital assets? If you work with an outside investment firm, by the way, the answer to that may be yes, to a certain extent, and maybe you're even already invested in digital assets through some common fund or index fund that is a part of your portfolio. What is the nature, origin, and history of performance of the digital asset that you're being asked to hold? Bitcoin has the history that you can see, and despite its so-called volatility, its history is fairly consistently upward, versus a relatively new asset with a high value now, but little history, higher risk, also your greenwashing considerations and so forth. Is your investment portfolio of sufficient size, value to absorb the potential volatility prudently and without harm to overall assets? In other words, will it violate MIFA, diversification and prudence standards? Now, universities with large endowments, the Princetons, Yales, Harvards, et cetera, have a higher risk tolerance than a charity with $9 million endowment. In fact, those large universities are already holding some digital assets in their investment portfolios. But a charity with a $9 million endowment or a $3 million endowment is really going to have to think carefully about whether it can accept a gift of digital assets with high value and hold them if it's going to cause disproportion in their overall portfolio. There are also reputational considerations that may be significant if there is even a potential for impact in the nonprofit's overall portfolio. So what do I mean by MIFA? Most of us know it, I hope, but it is the Uniform Management of Institutional Funds Act. It provides guidance and authority to charitable organizations concerning management investment of funds and imposes duties on the fiduciaries responsible for that. It is state law in every state, except Pennsylvania, which has similar standards and pre-existing law. It does not apply to program-related assets. So the Ripple donation to DonorsChoose.org was likely outside the MIFA requirements. But the evangelist digital asset donations, restricted to be held and not converted to cash for a period of time, would fall within MIFA requirements. So management and investment decisions cannot be in isolation. So they can't be applicable only to that one gift or that one fund created by that evangelist, but rather must be made in the context of the fund's portfolio of assets as a whole and part of an overall investment strategy. The institution may invest in any kind of property or type so they can bring in digital assets without violating prudence and MIFA, and they shall diversify the investments. There is a caveat. It says it reasonably believes that there are special circumstances and they can justify it. I do not believe that holding digital assets could ever rise to that, at least not in the near future. I don't think we're going to see that. I can't think right of a scenario where that would be the case. There are 8 factors that it requires an institution to consider when they consider these things listed here. They're in that. Fiduciary is accountable under a duty of loyalty and is enforceable at the instance of the Attorney General of the state if that's violated. So those are considerations when you're thinking about those evangelist type gifts. Other gift acceptance policy issues, Diane's addressed a number of them. If it's not feasible or prudent to hold digital assets as restricted by a donor, such as evangelist assets or otherwise, outline an approach for possible alternatives to explore with the donor, outline a policy regarding anonymous donors. Remember the big Pine donation in 2017, 2018. Pine was totally anonymous, 56 million to nearly 60 organizations, ranging from 50,000, that should say 50,000, to 5 million. The IRS does have disclosure requirements for donors over $5,000. That infamous Schedule B does still exist. Charities nonprofits are required on their 990 to fill out that Schedule B regarding donations of more than 5,000 in value. Many crypto gifts are more than that. Some are anonymous. In most platforms, I think most now are giving the donor the option of disclosing their information, and charities should encourage obtaining that, but that could be a problem. And maybe you want to think about encouraging a DAF, donor advised on intermediary, if anonymity becomes a compliance threatening issue. Another gift policy issue, identify and outline policies regarding other reporting requirements, which may be state reporting requirements, and consider and identify, as Diane pointed out, what assets you will accept. Will you accept NFTs? So what are NFTs? I mean, we know generally, so they're images that don't really exist in real life. And they're explained by Rick Edelman as you have to understand fungible tokens first. Dollar bills are fungible tokens. Points you earn on your American Express, casino chips. Those assets, those fungible assets are all the same. So if you lend $1 to a person, they don't have to give the same dollar back to you. They're fungible. Bitcoin, Ether, the digital assets are also fungible. When tokens are not fungible, they are not fungible token. They are all unique, and they're digital assets that don't exist in the real world. They're bought and sold on the blockchain. primarily through Ethereum blockchain, and they're paid for by Ether, the native coin of that blockchain. So considerations in fundraising and contributions. Attention started in February 2021 when Christie sold Mike Winkleman's, who goes by the name Binkle, digital image, an NFT for $69 million. The buyer obtained the legal right to the digital image. The artwork doesn't exist in the real world. Now, why would a buyer want to do this? Again, Rick Edelman talks about bragging rights mostly, but also they have the right to sell or license or distribute and to stop others from using it without the license. Think royalties for music and so forth. So do you want to hold an NFT? There are considerations, but receiving the proceeds of a sale or liquidation immediately is little or no risk, which Diane has talked about. Intermediaries receive them. You just need a plan for who acknowledges the gift, will be the conversion intermediary or the nonprofit. Easy peasy. You can get a lot of mileage out of it. So, but fundraising with NFTs has some other considerations, as Diane also pointed out, the commercial co-venture considerations under state law, depending on the definition, and cost-related marketing in terms of the way you approach an auction if you're working with the provider or an auctioneer or an owner of the NFT, someone who has purchased the rights to that image. A couple of other examples different than what Diane showed that are here. I think the Procter & Gamble Charmin images, which they called NFTs, clever, huh? To raise money for charity relief, implicated some of those commercial co-venture and cause marketing related issues. Holding non-fungible tokens received as gifts, as investments. I put a lot of question marks there. Prudent, MIFA considerations. I did put in the NBA trading cards example. Those sold, I think, within 24 hours when they were first put up. They are digital trading cards, 700 million in sales in less than a year on these digital trading cards. 250,000 people log on to the Top Shot website for them daily. Dapper Labs, the firm that created them, for the NBA is now worth $7.6 million. So maybe there are some NFTs that you might consider holding, but why? So known red flags or bad actors. I mentioned Dogecoin. And the exchange that was created by Ryan Kennedy, Moolah, which is now defunct. The creator was charged with fraud, theft, and money laundering in connection with Moolah. He was already in prison for other crimes. Dogecoin is considered by many to be a sham. It is, however, accepted on intermediary sites, including the Giving Block. So think about the pros and cons there if you want to accept Dogecoin, because it's possible somebody's holding it. In the marketplace, it still has some value. But the pros, if offered Dogecoin, it has value on the day and time offered. It is a windfall gift. Cons, it may make your organization the target of investigation by any money laundering jurisdiction authorities. There's reputational risk, backlash originating from press or other donors or beneficiaries who may ask or learn about the acceptance of those virtual assets that are questionable, that have had bad press. And there's the ethical question. Do you want to turn a blind eye to bad conduct by accepting the gift or make a statement, by example, of declining to accept such coins? How will you know if it's a bad actor? Well, Dogecoin and Ryan Kennedy were in the news, right? But that's where you get back to the anonymity of the blockchain. All transactions are associated with the public addresses of both the sender and the receiver, but the blockchain never reveals the people to whom the public addresses are linked. Although people have your public key, they don't know who you are, which is a reason why ransomware attackers demand Bitcoin for payment. So there is the permanence of the ledger. It can't be altered. It's there for all time. It can't be tampered with, because you'd have to tamper with every version of it in every computer node at the same time all around the world, the thousands of it. So it facilitates tracking transactions, but between whom? Security of the ledger. It was in the New York Times this week that North Korea hacked a whole bunch of, and is continuously hacking and stealing digital assets. But the nature of that, particularly the one it talked about in the New York Times, was those were gamers primarily in the most recent that it talked about there. These gamers were using the internet, and so they created situations that were vulnerable, or they bought into attempts by the hackers to gain their trust. So Bitcoin and Ethereum have never been hacked. They're still considered to be considerable security, unless it's human error or the way in which you're allowing data, particularly your personal data or personal data about your digital assets, to be active on the internet. So best practices, there are FinCEN and has best practices on its website. And then I think the every.org website has a nice, they reveal very quickly, just as the heightened due diligence that the National Philanthropy Trust had on their website that I showed earlier. This is what every.org has on their website about how they look at gifts they are offered through their platform of cryptocurrency or digital assets. Then also complementing every.org in terms of gift agreements for virtual assets. They have pointers here that are applicable to everyone in terms of thinking about how you structure your gift agreements in relation to your gift policies, gift acceptance policies concerning cryptocurrency. And they include links to actual gift acceptance policies by 3 different universities, which can be helpful. As Diane said, you can just search for them on the website and get others. So thank you, and I look forward to talking further.
Thank you. So we, as you can imagine, have a number of questions. So Diane, we're going to bring you back into the conversation here, because I think some of these may be questions that will be applicable for both of you. So one is a number of folks raised a fundamental question about what advice you have as the most important things to consider for smaller nonprofits who are interested in receiving gifts through cryptocurrency.
My advice would be to go explore and research the landscape of the different platforms that are out there. I think given what Karen explained with all of the complexities around holding the cryptocurrency or accepting it and selling it yourself, that these platforms really are very helpful in managing that process for you and limiting your risk. So Karen had a great addition to the list, in addition to what the platform that we are using.
And another question is, and you both touched on this several times, that sometimes you have donors who want you to hold on to a gift of cryptocurrency versus, normally you would just sell it and realize the gain at that time. I mean, what are the risks associated with holding versus sell? And I should say there's the practical risks and there's also the legal ethical risks.
I'll let Karen answer that, because I think the holding is just such a tricky decision.
I agree. I think holding is a tricky decision in part because of that volatility. Even Alex Gladstein, whom I am recognizing as a real tech savvy person from the Human Rights Foundation, said that he only holds Bitcoin in the Human Rights Foundation portfolio. He said Ethereum is 50-50. Now, as I said, Patrick Schmidt from Free Will was a little more liberal in that, but they're recognizing that while Bitcoin, while digital assets, cryptocurrency is very much a part of our economy now, and that donors hold it and they want to give it, that you need to be cautious and you need to be balanced in whether or not you're going to accept it. Now, the risks are that volatility. The risks are greenwashing. Is there someone trying to get you to hold them so that they can increase the reputation of their coin? And is that legitimate, or is that some sort of scam like Dogecoin? And then are you going to cause imbalance in your portfolio? Is it not going to be prudent because you don't have adequate diversification in the way you're holding it, as well as inadequate diversification is going to put your whole portfolio at risk, which has reputational risks that go with it. Is that helpful?
I believe it is. Thank you very much. There's a question that just came in for you, Diane. Can you talk about your organizational decision to go with owning your own crypto exchange accounts where donations go to you directly, then are processed by the giving block, versus the DAF type 501c3 intermediary model? Ease versus counterparty risk trust, since you would be pushing your donors to give through them? And if this model wasn't as in existence when you set up organizational accounts and we were starting from zero, would you now do it the same way?
Great question. They didn't really exist when we made that decision, and we do receive a large amount, or we have, of donations through DAF funds funded through cryptocurrency. I guess I believe the ease of the donation process for the donor, and I've seen some other questions, like, we don't judge our donors on how they choose to invest their funds. They, own extractive industry stocks and donate them anonymously. Similar, cryptocurrency, we can't judge why they've decided to invest in that way. But I think I started with the being everywhere our donors are and making it as easy as possible to support our mission and help them meet their needs as well. That these platforms help that process, make it easy. It's less risk for the charities, and again, much easier for the donor to fulfill that contribution.
As you can imagine, there's a lot between questions and chat having to do with the topic of risk.
I mean, just going through that.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, when we're thinking about the acceptance of contributions,
Yeah.
where Karen, you made reference to greenwashing, money laundering, the origin of the contribution, and usually if you're receiving a gift of cash, there seems to be a lot of checks and balances in the system, but with crypto, are there checks and balances? I mean, are the checks and balances that we have effective? And what risks might they pose to the reputation of our nonprofit organizations? And and how do we address these risks so that we feel safer in accepting crypto philanthropy?
I think, again, going back to the platforms, that our platform is connected to the Gemini exchange, so they trade a certain number of cryptocurrencies for a reason, right? There's a filter there, and then the cryptocurrencies that are added to the Giving Block platform, again, it's another filter. And a majority of our gifts come through Ethereum recently, given the NFT activity, and then Bitcoin is the second choice. So I'd say we're relying a bit on our partners to help filter through those less popular coins that are being traded. And I think one of the comments was specific to an individual exchange. And again, we're using the platform to help us filter through some of that.
Right. So, I mean,
Very,
please, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
no, I think that's a critical point. I think there's a very important point that we didn't necessarily focus on before, that those platforms do help provide that risk analysis. You wouldn't want to be using a platform that's new and unknown, but possibly just because you don't want to get into that possible risk situation. It needs to be established for a while. It needs vetting and some practice out there in performance out there in the field before you get onto that new platform, so you don't get into the Moolah and Rick Kennedy situation. So you want to, reliance on those partners and those living platforms is the best assurance. Using those intermediaries and those proven platforms is the best assurance right now in terms of offsetting those risks. And I think it's a good one. I think it gives charities a lot of comfort. I think that they are prudent. They're not going to run afoul of those considerations in any way in using those intermediary platforms or the large DAFs, donor advised ones for that matter.
And we've been approached with what were described as large gifts at the time, asking us to open accounts on a different exchange. And, you know, that's just a flat out no, that if the gift can't be processed through our existing, you know, even if it was a large amount to dream about and wonder how we might manage it internally and with all of the right policies in place, it just isn't something we'll consider.
A question, Karen, for you, it has to do with, I mean, to your knowledge, is the lands in terms of considering the landscape of crypto philanthropy, is this an issue that's being looked at by states' attorney generals, charities bureaus? And is there, you know, any movement on developing, you know, best practices and regulations, you know, at a state level, national level?
And I didn't mention that I spent 20 years as the head of charities in the Connecticut Attorney General's office.
Yes.
But yeah, and was active with the National Association of Attorneys Generals and the National Association of State Charities Officials. They, to my knowledge, I take that back. I am, since I'm no longer associate, I don't know for sure, but I heard a rumor that I cannot confirm, that the National Association of State Charities Officials, which are the actual regulators on the ground in state attorney general's offices, has a committee looking at the issue. Now, I don't know if they're actually moving toward recommending regulations or anything, but I think that they're actually looking at that. Now, you have your leaders. I mean, California has already done some work in trying to regulate movement of digital assets. New York has a licensing requirement for anyone who buys and sells for the exchanges, the platforms like blockchain, Giving Block and so forth, that buy and sell or move digital assets. So they do have a licensing requirement, which gives them direct jurisdictional oversight, which most states only have indirectly through these other laws, which are effective, by the way. But
Thank you.
That's my knowledge to date on that.
Well, I mean, thanks for sharing that, because I think there's you know, that's a question that you know, I certainly have been hearing from some of my clients and other colleagues, especially, you know, as I'm getting questions, you know, from colleagues, you know, working in different states, and you know, they're directing a lot of their questions around you know, gifts of crypto to the AG's offices, and sometimes they get clear answers and sometimes they're not. So yeah, exactly. So Diane, a question for you is how, I think this particular participant was taken by the platform that you shared with us. And how easy is it to set up a platform or an app to accept cryptocurrency gifts?
Actually, that was the one. We had one little surprise hiccup in that, and that was internal. It's quite easy. You're given a snippet of code to place on your website. In setting up the account that will where your cash, your US dollar contributions will land, in setting up that account, there was a requirement for, I believe it was 2 or 3 of the officers listed on the Form 990 had to provide copies of their driver's license and some personal information. And that was a moment of pause. That was very, we hadn't thought through what setting up that account would involve, but it was similar to setting up an account, checking account, business account for your nonprofit. So that was just a pause, questions around that. But once we got through that piece of the process, then it's just placing it on your web page, and it's available for for donors to donate. And we have a very I would say very basic process in place internally, where the gift admin team and the finance team come together once a month and just reconcile. If we do have contact information with the gifts, we do put those into our database of record. Finance is pulling the cash from the Gemini account into our main account and reconciling. So all of those processes are just similar, again, to other what we would do for a stock gift and recording the donor's gift.
Thank you. Another question is, here's one. How do you educate your university's president and team leading major decisions to get involved and realize the value of accepting crypto gifts?
I would say, so I'm with a nonprofit, and there was not a huge sales pitch that we needed to do. That our board is mostly business owners and sophisticated investors, and saw the opportunity, and it was pretty quick for us from thought to set up. And I feel for you, my colleagues that have a different experience.
John, I think that there's just a lot of research out there. I just touched on a little bit of it at the beginning of my slides there, that shows the demographics here and the trend in giving, the trend in who's giving, the trend in how they like to give, the trend in how they like to receive information, and what's going to happen over the next few years with wealth transfer, and the people who are going to be receiving that, who are in that demographic, who are using that information and comfortable with cryptocurrency now and hold it. And the risk-free way, essentially, risk-free way of using these intermediaries that Diane talks about. Any really smart president should be able to be sold on that, she says.
Here's an interesting correlating question. Should universities and colleges, in your opinion, also focus on creating educational programs around crypto and blockchains for their students?
Good question. I say yes, hands down. It's such a phenomenon, and wherever it goes, it's important now. And we've got a Gen Z and millennials who are, leading the world, and we're going to be leading it for some decades now, who are comfortable with it. So important that we teach the rest of us about that age group, about it, and the new students, those coming up as well. But when you ask about the education programs, it shouldn't be targeted just at the students, right?
Good point. It's another.
Thinking John, actually back to your question about talking to leadership. I have talked to many colleagues to help them with this decision-making process over the last few years. And I would say I always come at it from meeting the donors' needs. The donors are holding it. They want to use it for good, and we need to make it easy for them to do that. So just an added thought there.
Thank you. Here's another question, and it kind of gets back to you know, the notion of we're entering some brave new territory here, and the question is, can cryptocurrency malfeasance or fraud be met with legal restitutions without regulation and legislation? Is cryptocurrency world the proverbial Wild West?
Well, no more so than crowdfunding, but I see what you were asking.
Yeah.
The only one who can, in the payment context, for instance, with digital assets, if a credit card company is receiving payment in digital assets and they need to make a refund, the only one who can do that is that company. So there are those kinds of risks. Now on the fraud aspects of restitution, that has always pretty much been with law enforcement, right? So I'm not sure I'm directly answering your question at all.
Something I wanted to share with the two of you, that I was having a conversation with a colleague at a higher education institution in the South who mentioned that their policy on the acceptance of crypto philanthropy gifts is that they'll accept them, you know, essentially up to a certain level. Maybe it's $10,000 or the perceived value of $10,000, and no questions asked. But if a donor comes to the university and is offering a significant gift, and that gift could be $50,000, $100,000 or higher, their policy is that the donor has to sign an agreement to backstop the gift with US dollars. So in other words, we'll take your crypto gift and we're going to sell it, and we'll realize, whatever we're going to realize. But if basically the bottom drops out, you have to back it up with US dollars. Have you heard of any other institution using a policy like that? And in your opinion, do you think that is an effective policy?
The backstop seems hardly, well, it's not relevant when you're using an intermediary. There's an immediate conversion. Mm-hmm. And Diane, you can speak more clearly to this perhaps, but I think that's going to be your policy with the charity who's accepting it directly as well. I mean, are you asking them to backstop it if they are going to agree to hold it for a period, such as the evangelist donations? In that case, maybe that's a hedge against the bad guys. I don't know. But whether it's being done, I don't know. Have you heard about it, Diane?
No, I have not. And not a giving option that I see often on the charitable nonprofit side. I am sort of intrigued about the limit, just in general, and the majority of our gifts are under $25,000 through cryptocurrency. So I think that amount is still sort of.
I think the limit could have, that several factors could go into that. If you have a very small endowment, are you going to accept a gift of $5 million worth of cryptocurrency or not? I mean, that can be simply a gift policy because of your capacity and the size of your endowment and your invested assets, that you put those kinds of limits because you know ahead of time. That's just part of your planning going into your gift policy. I can see that reason for putting a limit on it, in terms of not accepting it. If you're offered $25,000 for program-related assets, and you only have a $3 million asset, but it's program-related and it's going to allow you, and you have the capacity to expand your programming in that way, why would you put the limit on? But you have to have the capacity to do it.
Here's another question that just came in, which has to do with, do you have any resources or information or sources of information that you would recommend someone look into to learn more about crypto philanthropy and acceptance of cryptocurrency gifts?
I would suggest the Giving Block website that has a lot of information to help you make the case to your leadership. There's information for both the donors and the nonprofits. There are a ton of webinars out there, and I'm really excited about this one because I've learned a lot. A lot has changed since we've been adopting, and also the regulatory considerations that are growing. It's really is getting tricky to stay on top of everything. So I do look to my partners to help me do that.
Yeah, that's I couldn't agree more. I feel like I've seen the phrase "Wild West" any number of times in this for the chat in questions for this webinar, and the one we had last week, and it certainly feels a lot like that. At some point, do you foresee there's going to be a point where it's not going to feel like the Wild West? It was interesting. One of our speakers last week kind of reminded us that it wasn't even that long ago, historically speaking, where charities were just getting into the business of accepting contributions by credit card. And that felt a bit fraught with peril. Is there a point where it's not going to feel like that? And how soon might that happen?
I do reference that time when credit cards, when donors preferred to call the 800 number and give their credit card number over the phone. They felt that was safer than making the contribution on a web page, which times have changed. Great question. There's been, a ton of activity for us over the last 2 years, and I did take a peek at our dashboard today, and there was very little activity over the last month. So I would say if it were the Wild West, this last month was very quiet and slow. So I assume a roller coaster for a time, and we don't watch prices of coins with Bitcoin. That doesn't matter. It's just being there for when the donors want to make a contribution.
I think that Wild West aspect has more to do in terms of philanthropy if you're going to hold the assets. And again, if you're accepting them, you're accepting a cash gift, as long as that has value, and which is it's being converted and given to you as a cash gift. So I think keeping that in mind takes that Wild West aspect out. The Wild West aspect is somewhere else than a nonprofit accepting the cash gift through an intermediary. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, there are a lot of considerations that we've talked about already.
Here's a question just came in. My university hired me as a student assistant on the philanthropic and investment side to help them develop and find opportunities within the crypto space. The chief financial officer has a good head on his shoulders, but other employees are not focused enough on crypto. Do you have any recommendations on finding programs or groups of educators to help teach the faculty?
Well, there you are. Goes back to your question, John. I think there are resources out there, and there are probably willing people out there. Diane mentioned the Giving Block website. I think the Coinbase website has a huge amount of information on it. FreeWill offers a number of tools with a good amount of information from a different perspective, and yet it's all good information. So I think there's a lot of information out there. I'm sure there are other webinars and other people willing. So interesting question, but I think there are as many people willing and interested as maybe there aren't who think they don't want to learn, but it's pretty interesting.
another question. Karen, you had shared a lot of, or a nice overview of demographic data on generational giving that seems to point to millennials, Gen Zers, and ultimately the generations follow them may just ultimately begin to choose crypto possibly more often as a medium for charitable contributions. Is there, any evidence that shows that, there's an increasing prevalence of this type of giving? And, is there a point where, charities are just probably, there's a tipping point where you'll begin to see just more of this giving? And I'm sure, Diane, you probably have something to share on this point as well.
It was in one of your slides, Diane, about the amount of giving and the market cap. And of course, last year and the very beginning of this year would have been a surge in that because of the capital gains, just because the huge leap in value of the digital coins that incentivized giving a lot of that wealth that was immediately accumulated.
Yeah, I've seen a data point about the percentage of individuals under 40 they're holding cryptocurrency as part of their retirement planning. So so back to younger donors, are holding assets in different ways and will fulfill their charitable giving in different ways going forward. So that there's something there.
Okay. Let's see. We are almost coming up on 6:30, and I wanted to give the two of you an opportunity to make any closing comments, and then I'll share some closing comments and thank everyone for participating. So whomever would like to chime in.
Well, I just want to say thank you, John, for facilitating this, and I'm excited to see the next session and learn more. And for people on the session today, I'm happy to reach out to me through LinkedIn. Happy to answer questions and share my experiences, which is one very my specific, and there are many other folks. But if I can't answer a question, I'm happy to connect you with other colleagues that are have gone through something similar to help share.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My thanks to Diane, John, for a really good session on that webinar that I think it's very important for the School of Nonprofit Management to take on, to educate ourselves and our own, as well as all of those who've shown an interest by participating and coming online for these webinars. So thank you.
Well, I want to thank the two of you so much for sharing your insights and sharing your expertise. And I want to thank everyone who's joined as a participant today. I've really enjoyed seeing the chat. There's a lot of conversation going on, which is great. And I want to invite all of you to attend our upcoming final segment of our series. This will be on Thursday, July 14th, again, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And session 3 will deal with the road ahead. So we're going to ask if you'd like to join us as we take a look at the future of crypto philanthropy with insights on donor interests, giving considerations, and what's needed from charities to help donors make informed giving decisions. This session is going to be moderated by my very good friend and colleague, Leah Heister-Burton, who is a lecturer in our program and Deputy Director and Chief Advancement Officer at the Guggenheim. And our panelists are Lisa Zola-Greer, philanthropist, entrepreneur, convener, and the author of Philanthropy Revolution, and Mark Ulrich, co-founder and CEO of Every.org. And I want to give a huge shout out, Mark, for thank you so much for joining us. I've seen you chiming in the chat, and that's terrific. And thank you for being with us. And again, thanks everyone for your participation. And we hope to see you here again in a week's time.